guys, how's it going? It's Calvin Raab. So what are some of the worst feelings that are out there? Well, maybe I would say probably seaweed getting wrapped around your legs, or watching the Patriots win every single Sunday. Chargers fan here, so I'm still hurting. But I would say that up there with some of the most annoying feelings in the world is that feeling of knowing that you are getting ripped off. I do not like getting ripped off. You know, I really enjoy personal finance. I'm all about making money and saving money. So getting ripped off, it makes me kind of mad. But in this video, I want to go over what are the top rip-offs out there. So I've narrowed it down to 12, and I'm going to count them all down, and we're going to go through what are the top rip-offs that are out there. So maybe you can just know about them and try to avoid them next time they kind of come into your path. So let's get into it. Let's get into the biggest rip-offs that I see out there. Let's jump into it. And if you're new here, my name's Calvin Raab. I make videos all about personal finance. So if you're interested in anything like that, I would love it if you would subscribe. Number one is all things hotel related. So if I'm ever at a hotel and I'm buying something, I always feel like I'm getting ripped off. I always have this thing in the back of my mind that was like, you overspent for that, Calvin. You could have saved money somewhere. But that's just the nature of hotels, and oftentimes you're being ripped off with a lot of different things. So if you ever go to the mini bar, that's quite expensive. The movies are quite expensive if you ever buy a movie at a hotel. The food is oftentimes expensive. The delivery can be expensive up to your room. Then you oftentimes have to tip the individual that is serving you the food. So it all adds up, and I always feel like I'm being ripped off. And oftentimes, even buying a hotel room, I feel like I'm being ripped off too. Luckily now, there's a whole bunch of different apps that are out there that allow you to save money at hotels and get cheaper rooms. So I highly recommend looking at those before you look at just the face value price that the company gives. So with hotels, it's important to just be aware that you might be getting ripped off and see if you can find different ways, you know, rather than eating at the hotel, you just go to a restaurant down the street, probably save some money. And I never really get anything at the mini bar. So just be aware that hotels are places where a lot of people get ripped off. Number two are new cars. And if you ever look at the price of new cars versus just cars that are 1 year old, it's unbelievable. You know, that old notion of if you drive the car off the lot, it automatically loses 20% of value the minute you pull out, and that is kind of true. I never really understood why anyone buys new cars. You know, just get a 1 year old model. It's basically new, and you are saving so much money. You know, the only times I can really think of when you would buy a new car is if you get a tax break, you know, with something like the Tesla Model 3, where you can get significant tax breaks on it, or if you're just super rich to the point where it really doesn't matter. But other than that, I can't think of too many reasons for why you'd buy a new car, especially if you can get one just a few years older, save a whole bunch of money, and for me, that's just the way to go, and it feels very new. I mean, you can get cars with very low mileage that have barely been driven and save a bundle because you didn't buy them new. So number two are new cars. Number three is college. Now, I don't want to make this sound like I am anti-college whatsoever, because I'm not. You know, I am in college right now, and I certainly see the value within it, but it is very, very expensive. And I oftentimes do feel like, you're being ripped off in some way. And there are ways that you can go about your college career and save a lot of money. So I recommend you check out my video about how I saved $40,000 with one decision. That kind of talks about my college process and how I saved a lot of money doing that. But college is unbelievably expensive, and oftentimes I do feel like it is a bit of a ripoff. So I do recommend looking at things like community college, which is something that I did before I transferred. I now go to UCLA, but there are ways that you can save a lot of money doing college, because on its surface, it oftentimes does feel like a ripoff, especially if you compare the price of college here to college within other countries. It's amazing how stark that difference is. So this one is all about college and how expensive that is. Number four is fountain soda, and the reason for this is because if you ever go to a place and they they have fountain drinks and you get a drink and it's probably $1, $2. Well, for the company itself, soda's really cheap. It's probably costing them pennies. That markup margin is probably one of the biggest markups that I see out there. They're selling something for $1 to $2 that they get for pennies, and it's unbelievable. And I always feel like I'm getting ripped off if I ever get a fountain soda. Luckily, I don't like fountain soda. I really don't like the fizz and the carbonation. It's just like, ugh, I'm not a big fan. So I'm lucky in that standpoint, but it's also not that good for you. So that's also another thing if you need another reason aside from being ripped off to try to cut soda out of your life. But soda does have a very high markup value on it, and even if you look at grocery stores, you see the big sodas, you can see how much cheaper that is than if you go to and just get a cup at some restaurant or somewhere like that has fountain soda. So that's something to think about, look into, because every time if I get a fountain soda, I feel like I'm being ripped off. Number 5, and this one is close to that hotel related idea, and that is all things airport related. Airports are also a very big ripoff, and the reason for that is because you are stuck oftentimes in the airport. If you have to find food somewhere, you can't really go elsewhere because then you got to go back through security, and oftentimes you're pressed for time. If you have departing flight in like an hour or two, you don't have enough time to leave. So they know that, and they jack up the prices for that. And it's not just the food and different amenities at these airports, but oftentimes different things like upgrades. I've paid like different amounts of money, some pretty substantial amounts of money, for extra leg room, and then I get on the plane and it's barely any extra leg room. They kind of hype it up as being, oh, this much more luxury, much more room, you'll have a much better flight, but then you get there and you're like, this isn't that much different than the seat I was gonna have. But all in all, there are a lot of ripoffs at airports, and I never liked spending that much money at airports, so now I try to either bring food in. If I absolutely have to buy food at an airport, sometimes I'll try to go to a nice place, because you can go to an airport and have to spend $13, $14 on a sandwich, and then the whole time I'm eating that, I'm just thinking, this is not worth it, this is not worth it. So I'm willing to spend a little bit more money to try to go to a nicer place, because now at least I know I'm spending a little more, but I feel like I'm getting more out of it. So I don't know if that's a good rationale, but it's something that I now do at airports if I absolutely have to. But I try not to eat too much at airports. I try to bring my own food in. Of course, you can't bring water in, but I try to bring some food in that I can eat so that I don't get ripped off at airports. So with airports, always look at different prices, and you can find cheaper pricing if you book far in ahead. So just know that airports will try to rip you off, and just be aware of that. Number 6 are bank fees. There are a lot of bank fees that are out there that I see as just being complete ripoffs. If you look through your bank statement, you may find different service fees and things like that. So if you're looking at opening a bank account somewhere, definitely look at the small details of service charges and different things like that to figure out how much they are, because oftentimes they can add up. But other bank fees are things like if it's $12 a month, $10 a month, to have a specific account there. It is important to know that oftentimes there are ways to get out of these fees. So for me, I have one of my checking accounts is at Chase, and they do have a monthly payment or monthly fee that I do have to pay. But because there's different rules and regulations, they have like, oh, if you have this much money in your account, or if you're a student or something like that, you can usually get out of it. So that is something to look at if you are spending bank fees. Know that usually there's some way that you can get out of it. There's also little things concerning banks. I didn't have these written down in my script, but they just kind of popped in my head right now. Those are like ATM charges. If something is out of network, they can really rip you off doing that. So that's something to be aware of. Always maybe just try to go to ATM for that specific card that you have. And there's a bunch of different fees and different things like that that banks have. So as always, when you're looking at opening up a bank account, look at the fees and compare different companies to one another, and just just figure out the ones that have the smallest fees, because although they may be small, they do add up. Number 7 is bottled water. Now, bottled water is, for me, just looks like a ripoff because there are so many ways that you can just avoid it. Although it's not that expensive, if you really break it down per kind of bottle of water, it does start to add up. If you're going through 2 or 3 a day, that's quite a bit of money that's adding up over the course of the month and over the course of the year. So what I do, probably the easiest fix to this, is I just got a water bottle. I have a Hydro Flask that I got that I do really like. They are kind of expensive. There are cheaper ones out there that are like Hydro Flask that you can get that are a whole lot cheaper. But for me, that's been a lifesaver. It keeps my water cool. I can easily just go refill it somewhere, and then I don't even have to buy water bottles. And it also helps the environment, and it helps my bank account. So it's a win-win when it comes to that. So bottled water is the number 7 ripoff on this list. Number 8 are college textbooks. It is insane how expensive college textbooks are, and it's always frustrating. I always feel like I'm getting ripped off because every year college textbooks come out with a new version, like version 12, version 13, and nothing's really that different. They just change a few examples and a few names, and then they make you buy it, and it's brand new, so it's more expensive. But there are ways that was a little vent there. I just bought my college textbook, so I was like, I think I got ripped off. But there are ways that you can find cheaper ones. If possible, get it used. You can go to places like Chegg or Amazon, and you can even rent it. You can get used rentals, and that's usually a pretty good price. And see if you don't have to get that newest version. If you can go back and get earlier versions, you can usually save quite a bit of money there. And then also make sure that you have to buy the textbook, because I've had a lot of classes where I get the textbook beforehand, I bring it to lecture, and then all of a sudden they're just like, oh, we're probably not going to use it. Or you just go through the entire quarter or semester and you never use it. So just make sure you actually need it. Talk to other people, read reviews on the class to see if you do, and just see if anyone else has the textbook that you can buy it from, or maybe you can share it with somebody or download a PDF online. So there's much of different options, but college textbooks are expensive, and every time I buy one, I'm always like, I think I'm being ripped off. Number 9 is coffee. So I study a lot at a coffee shop. I really enjoy doing that, and every time I'm there, I always see the frequent customers, and they always get their special coffee, their chai tea lattes and different things like that. I don't really know what I'm talking about. I actually don't drink coffee. I'm not a big coffee kind of caffeine guy, which is kind of funny, but people spend an unbelievable amount on that. And I understand that, yeah, it tastes good, but there are other ways. In my apartment, 2 of my roommates are big coffee drinkers, and they actually just got a coffee machine in there, and they buy nice stuff to put in there. So their coffee is good. They're not necessarily sacrificing on the quality of coffee. If you get a nice machine and you buy nice packets to put within it, then it's still nice coffee, but you are saving a whole bunch more because you are buying in bulk. You're definitely paying that premium if you actually go to the store. So definitely look at making your own coffee if you do need caffeine in any such way, and just know that those little prices do add up. So coffee is gonna be number 9 on this list for biggest ripoff. Number 10. So what if I told you that you could take some money, you could give it to someone, they would give you a little piece of paper back, and in a couple weeks that paper is worth nothing? Well, that is gambling, essentially. Gambling on my list is going to be probably one of the biggest ripoffs, and that's because people that get into gambling or are maybe even addicted to gambling, it is such a ripoff because you're most likely not going to win. If you look at your actual odds, it is so not worth it to put money into it. You can even look at the statistics behind it. I took a stats course, and part of our class was all focused on gambling, and that's really what taught me, like, I will probably never gamble. I don't gamble. I don't really enjoy it. I gamble with my friends with like fake money and stuff like that, just playing the games, but I will probably never use real money for it because I know, like, oh, the house is usually going to win, and it's just not a good thing to get into. It is, of course, addicting, and it's a ripoff. Like, I just want to say, you're almost just throwing money away, just invest it instead, and you will see a much better return than you ever will gambling. Unless for some crazy reason you win the giant Powerball or something, but look at the statistics. You're more like, it's more like you're throwing your money away. So that is all about gambling, and number 10 ripoff is gambling. Number 11, that's an 11, and that is a gym membership. So I'm not against gyms, but for a lot of people they are a ripoff, and that's for a multitude of different reasons. The first one is, I know a lot of friends that have pretty expensive gym memberships, and they don't end up going that much. You know, maybe they go once a week, so they're only going 4 times a month and paying a lot per month for that gym membership. And you really break it down to how many times you're actually going, it's not really worth it when you do that. And also, it is worth it for some people, I do want to say. So for me, I do have a gym membership, but I try to work out every single day. I try to get in there, and it's of course making me healthier, but I make it worth it because I go so much. I mean, I know, like, you can tell, you can probably tell I go to the gym every single day. Like, I'm messing with you. But so gym memberships, for a lot of people, they spend a lot of money on it, and if you don't go much, it is a ripoff. And oftentimes, you know, if you only go and do a few things, it may be cheaper for you to buy some stuff and use it at your house or maybe your apartment, you know, buy some weights or just run outside. If money is quite tight, then usually there's other way to get exercise than going to the gym. So gym memberships for a lot of people are a ripoff because they never use it. Number 12, this is kind of the last one here. That's supposed to be a 12, but that is time wasters. So this is kind of flipping it, you know, in all these other ones I've talked about specific products that you're buying that I see as a ripoff, but things that waste your time are such a big ripoff, you know, something along the lines of just when you are being lazy and you're just wasting time, that is a ripoff, because I think of time as money, and if I am wasting my time, I am wasting money, and when I am wasting money, I see that as being ripped off. So that's kind of my line of thinking here. So just be very aware of that. You know, you can be so careful about where you spend your money, and you can try to be as frugal as possible, but if you're wasting your time, you are in effect wasting money. So oftentimes take into consideration that time is oftentimes the biggest asset that you have, and you don't want to waste that. So I don't want to get too preachy here, but this is just kind of an interesting take on my idea of ripoffs, things that are wasting my time. I see them as being a ripoff, and as I said, ripoffs do annoy me, so wasting time is frustrating to me as well. I made a whole video about my biggest frustration and how I'm fixing that, and hint, it has to do with wasting time, so I recommend checking that out as well. But that will wrap it up. So those are 12 different things that I see as big ripoffs and different things like that. I hate the feeling of being ripped off, so these all kind of frustrate me a little bit, but hopefully now that you may be aware of them, it might help you just acknowledge them and help you save a little bit of money by doing something else. But these are by far not the only ways or the only ripoffs that are out there, so I would love to then hear from you. What are some other big ripoffs that are out there? You know, this is something that I like talking about because, you know, I don't want to get ripped off. So let me know below. Maybe there isn't something I've thought of or something that I'm not aware of, and I'll be going through there. I'll be talking to you guys. I always enjoy chatting with y'all. But that will wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, my name is Calvin Raab. I make videos all about personal finance, so if you're interested in anything like that, I would love it if you would subscribe. But that will wrap it up. Thank you guys, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Congratulations. So I'm going to move to the corner of your screen here. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, you are going to see my most recent video. And if you look in the lower left-hand corner, you're going to see a video that YouTube and I each think that you would like. And if you haven't yet, you can hit my face right here and subscribe. As always, my name is Calvin Raab, and I'll see you soon.